the Department of Homeland Security released a report. So originally, it wasn't supposed to be make it into the public, but it did. And basically, they're defining who terrorists are, and they're not people from, Iraq that might want to blow up bridges or anything. Or they're pro-lifers. They are people who believe in the Second Amendment. That the Second Amendment is in the Constitution, which is an odd position to take, I would think. But people that believe that, in traditional values that are right-wing extremists, no gay marriages and that sort of thing, and former members of the military. These are all potential terrorists. Mm-hmm. Now, Homeland Security was developed originally to protect us from things like 911. Mm-hmm. Does anybody here believe that the average American goes to bed tonight and thinks, man, I hope there's not a big team of marauding pro-lifers out there that are going to break in and kill me and slit my throat in the middle of the night?
I do know people that think that, yeah.
Well, then you know some weird people. You know some weird people. But that's what it's come to. And, all these things were dangerous in the civil rights context, that we start things like the Patriot Act and things like that. And we talked about that here on this show, and I made the point at the time, and I still say this. I say it now more than ever. Back whenever all the conservatives, so-called conservatives and Republicans were all red hot about the Patriot Act. And I said, what you have to understand is you have to be willing to be red hot about it. And at the time I said Hillary Clinton because it looked like she was going to be president. If 2 or 3 years from now, Hillary Clinton has these sort of powers. Well, now it's worse than that. Barack Obama's got those powers, and he's far worse than Hillary Clinton ever dreamed of doing. And so they're using these powers now, and I think it's a very dangerous position that we're in. The good news is there are people that are fighting back on this, and one of them is Richard Thompson, who's President and Chief Counsel of the Thomas More Law Center, and he joins us today from Michigan. Hello, Richard.
Hi, thanks for having me, Mark. Appreciate it.
Richard, before we get started here, you guys have filed a suit on behalf of some pro-lifers. I'll let you talk about that here in a minute, and others, against Napolitano in the Department of Homeland Security. Is that correct?
That's right, and we've also included the Attorney General as well.
Good. You remember, Richard, and I know that you do, years ago when the Clinton-Reno juggernaut was in place, pro-lifers, and we experienced this here. Our phones were tapped. We were able to discover that through electronic means.
Mail was open.
Our mail was being opened. There was no warrants for any of this stuff. We weren't doing anything. They knew we weren't doing anything, but the Justice Department was doing this. And this sort of thing was happening all over the country to pro-life groups, and Janet Reno was out here denying that there was any kind of organized effort within the Justice Department to do these things. And, of course, she was exposed as a liar when VAPCOM was exposed. Do you remember that?
Yes, I do. In fact, we represented a man by the name of Greg Cunningham, who is head of the Center for Bioethical Reform, on a couple of occasions when his trucks were stopped by the FBI on the basis that they were potential terrorists. And we had to file lawsuits, and in both lawsuits we prevailed.
Well, Richard, I've often said that what Clinton and Reno did with VAPCOM is turn the United States Justice Department into a private police force for the abortion lobby. And I'll go to my grave saying that, because that's exactly what happened.
I think you're right.
And I think that what's happening right now is that Napolitano/Obama is just the redo of Clinton/Reno.
Right. I think what we're seeing now is the trappings of tyranny with the release of this particular report, so-called assessment on right-wing extremism. What we have to keep in mind, as you just pointed out, that this is not some benign report that someone in a bureaucracy developed and then put into a filing cabinet. This was sent out to every local and state law enforcement department in the country. It was sent to the FBI. I just talked to, a couple of days ago, to a former FBI agent who told me that if the FBI gets a complaint on a pro-lifer, this report now is the basis for them to go ahead and investigate that pro-lifer as a right-wing extremist and potential terrorist. So you're going to see thousands of police officers that have this report, and if a complaint is made, they're going to open up a file. They're going to go knocking on the door of the pro-lifer to determine whether they are, in fact, a terrorist. So you have this oppressive view of things going on, and of course it's going to chill the free speech rights of pro-lifers. It's going to chill their ability to join other pro-life groups, because they're going to be afraid that all at once the federal government now has profiled them as a potential terrorist.
Richard, do you think, am I off base in saying that the Department of Homeland Security was developed to protect us in instances like 9/11, and now it's being turned by the Obama administration into a political weapon to use against his enemies?
I agree. There is no question in my mind that this has become a tool for shutting down any kind of opposition to the Obama administration from, as you were mentioning, the groups, from those who oppose abortions, those who oppose same-sex marriages, those who oppose restrictions on firearms ownerships, those who oppose the institution of a one-world government, those who bemoan the reduction of America's stature in the world. I mean, if you look at this particular intelligence assessment, it is very clear that this is a document that has been made to go after people who oppose the policies of the Obama administration. This is not a document that shows any kind of imminent threat from any of these groups. In fact, the document starts off by saying they have no evidence at all that right-wing extremists are currently planning any acts of violence. So what they've basically done is target Americans because of their beliefs. And as you know, our Constitution prohibits that. And the free speech rights is one of the crucial underpinnings of self-government. If we cannot speak out, if we cannot oppose our government when we think that they are wrong, pretty soon we have a tyrannical government. And that's the concern that the Thomas More Law Center has in filing this lawsuit, because we believe it is the first steps of tyranny, and we want to stop it now.
Did this all get kind of resurrected because of the recent Tea Parties? Because that's when I started hearing extremists and watch out for them.
No, it had to be in the works before that, but...
Yeah, it was released. It was, well, some people theorized that it was purposely made public to try to chill people's ideas of coming out into these Tea Parties. And I don't have any basis for that, but that is one of the theories that is out there, that it was done on purpose to, try to tamp down on people who might want to come out to these Tea Parties, because no one wants to be videotaped or put into some kind of surveillance report.
Richard, I was noticing that assessment, and then I also got a hold to another, there's another assessment on the left-wing extremists. And it was shocking, the difference how they described it. For the right-wing extreme, we're outright dangerous the way it makes it sound. And for the other side, they have a no-harm policy.
Well, you know
and they're
what?
only going to be just threatening for cyber. The difference in those two reports was
absolutely. I was on a talk show, radio talk show, where you had the liberal viewpoint, and they immediately threw up this. Well, there is a report on left-wing potential left-wing terrorism. As you indicate, the two reports are different.